Shepard, it seems like the world has gone crazy. We've been hearing a lot about Antifa. President Trump last week declared it a terrorist organization, but there's been really no significant action since then. How are you, Shepard? Welcome back to the show.
I'm doing good, Jason. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you again. People who haven't seen you before, I don't know where they've been hiding out, but they should know that you are the editor-in-chief of Intellihub.com, and you're a frequent guest on this show. You earlier this week brought forward some stunning information about Antifa. Tell us a little bit about what we're going to discuss today.
Well, apparently Antifa has 100-year plan. And when I say Antifa, I basically mean George Soros. But there's a 100-year plan. They want to basically transform the nation into exactly the opposite of what it's supposed to be. And they've rallied an entire army around using, basically they're targeting certain people. So I got a hold of the actual Antifa manual or portions of it. I'm not, I think there's more to it, but this was sent to me by someone I've known for over 30 years personally, and they got a hold of it through someone they personally know, and they took pictures of this and gave it directly to me. But basically, there's this, it's called the Antifa manual. On the cover, and you can find this on Intellihub.com. On the cover, it says, "Do not distribute to any CIS white males," which is cisgender white males. Basically, that means people who believe they were born male and they're white. So if you believe that, they can't distribute that to you. So anyone that's basically a normal human being, they can't distribute it to non-POC, or they can't distribute it
What is
to any
POC? A person of color?
non-LGBTQ. Yeah, and then no non-LGBTQ peoples, and then they put AKA fascists. So they're calling all those people, basically they're saying, look, like white males are fascists, you know, if you believe you were born a male, you're a fascist. And that's their goal. It's basically to create chaos, but it gets into the introduction. Now, it says, if you're reading this, it's because someone close to our movement trusted you with it. Please do not distribute to anyone who may attempt to harm or degenerate what we are doing. This is an anti-fascist or Antifa manual. If you are reading this, you already know that we are a social justice movement against hatred, intolerance, and bigotry. This manual outlines where we've been, where we're at, and where we're headed within the next 100 years. But first, to understand how we got here, we have to understand white privilege. It says white privilege in big bold letters, and it gets into that. So it lays out how they've had, it
Well, but
says
let's
for
just
100.
talk about this portion for a second, Shepard,
Sure.
because they're saying that they're against violence, they're against intolerance, but
Right.
if you disagree with anything they say, they utilize violence because they
Yeah.
are inherently intolerant.
It's basically exactly what they are. This is a something the New World Order loves to use, the puppet masters, the people behind the scenes, as you very well know, Jason. But whatever they're doing, they just go ahead and flip it, and they go the exact opposite. So, if Hillary Clinton's doing uranium deals with the Russians, well, then all of a sudden Trump's doing deals with the Russians. So this is a tactic, and it also causes great divide to certain people who are going to get into this in several ways. So this whole plan causes chaos all the way around, but essentially it gets into white privilege, and it says for hundreds, if not thousands of years, the cisgender white male power structure controlled the media and disbursement of information. First came the printing press, controlled by white males. Then came mass media such as newspapers and television, controlled by white males. But the next evolution of media was born at a time when the cisgender white male power structure began to lose its firm grip on the dissemination of ideas. Some of our kind have begun to infiltrate high-level portions of power in major media organizations. So they're admitting that now they've went ahead and they've salted their way, they sprinkled their people into major media organizations. And it says, and of course, the new king of idea dissemination is social media. This is the new battleground for our war against fascism. So they're talking about this war against fascism, but meanwhile, they're basically creating this, and they're talking about how they've infiltrated and made, I guess you would call that, I don't know, they've made advances into corporations.
Well,
I
that's
don't know
clear,
what.
isn't it, Shepard? I mean, we've got somebody here on Periscope watching right now who I haven't ever seen before. Use your blinker! Exclamation point. Says this is a lie, Shepard. We've got an unknown sock puppet Twitter account accusing you, a guy who's presenting himself on his real name, his true likeness. You've been in this game for many years, and here we have some unknown person saying this is a lie. How can we set at ease anyone who might be concerned? I mean, it's a legitimate concern. How do we know that this is real and it's not somebody trying to trick you?
The only thing I can say is, like I said, I got this from someone I personally know for over 30 years, and it was an ex-employer of mine when I was a teenager, and this person hires younger people for that type of position. So this person lives in Washington State. It's basically the Antifa capital. And yeah, his employees are probably Antifa, and he got this off of one of them. He builds good rapport with his employees. He turned it over to me right away, said this is real, took pictures of it. This guy I've known for over 30 years.
Why would he
He's a
trick
pretty,
you?
yeah,
And
he's
how
a
would the
pretty
person who
high-powered
gave it to
businessman.
him?
He's got no time to do anything. He runs multi-million-dollar operations.
So let me
He
ask you
I
this as
guess
well, because you've just pointed out that they've admitted that they've got people in major corporations. I mean, you can't turn on Amazon.com or HBO or anything without seeing that, they are supporting. See, this is where it's kind of clever and also quite tricky, because we've got Black Lives Matter and Antifa. And at these protests, they seem to be embedded together. And the
that's
key
right.
is this is a peaceful protest during the day. And also, the definition of peaceful is kind of loose. If you go into these protests and try to communicate with any of these people who supposedly hate intolerance, just asking them questions like, have you ever heard of the Weather Underground? Do you know who Joanne Chesimard is? Do you know what the Black Panthers were all about, where this defund the police comes from? They literally, I mean, it's happened to me. I've been pushed. I'm talking about white people, not
Right.
black people. I'm talking about white
And
people who
not only
push
that,
me.
yeah, and they don't even know anything about these subjects. The bottom line is they've rolled it out on both sides. It's a controlled opposition of both sides. It's a dual monarchy, I guess you call it, or whatever you want to call it. It's a dual-headed snake, I guess,
Right.
Soros rolled out. So they're playing so many different sides, because if you think about the multiplexity of the psyop, when we're talking about something like that, you got Black Lives Matter. That right there causes like a 50-50 divide. Now you've got Antifa.
Well,
That
wait a
right
minute.
there
Wait,
causes
let's address that, though, because just saying it causes a 50-50 divide,
well,
it's a
I
bit
mean, as
misleading.
an
My
example,
personal feeling is that what they do is they name an entity. They look back and they say, hey, we had this thing in the 1960s called the Black Liberation Army. That's a little bit militant, and it's going to immediately put people
yes, they
off.
make it sound
We
good.
need to bring in white people to this movement. So if we call it
Yes.
Black Lives Matters, whatever it is that the goal of it is, if
You
you
can pull
oppose
them
it,
in.
you appear to be
Yeah,
racist.
that's what I'm talking about, the multiplexity of this. So you're exactly right. So when I was talking about it creates a 50-50 divide, it also creates a 50-50. It creates the people that want to come together. So you're getting, and then you're getting this on the Antifa side as well. So it's like this whole multi-pronged, very complex psyop, but they're changing like search terms. They're making it out like Donald Trump's a fascist. Essentially, if you go look at the definition of a fascist and then you look at in older dictionaries versus newer, it's changed
Really?
because now their definition is basically they want it to read Donald Trump. Uh, and it gets into the whole, then the demonization of whites, then the Black Lives Matter, then the shooting of George Floyd, then the press. We just talked about how they salted their way up into the press. Okay, now they're going to create the storm, if you will, right? Like they're creating order out of chaos eventually because the Antifa's plan, and you got to see this as Antifa's plan might not be like Soros's whole plan because, like you said, also too, like we know Soros has his hand in Black Lives Matter. So there's a bigger overarching plan that's connecting to all this, and there's multi-pronged Soros plans branching off that pyramid. But the Antifa side of it, they're demonizing whites. If you, I mean, it literally says like uh, cisgender white males have proven to be the greatest evil to mankind has ever known. From Hitler to our very own Harry S. Truman, who dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, to the slave traders of old, no one has proven to do more harm to mankind than white men. From their murderous plundering, e.g., the Native Americans and African slaves, white males have achieved status and power in the United States and Western Europe. Never indulge any fantasy by fascists that white men have also cured diseases, lifted people out of poverty through Western capitalism, democracy, or any other
Facetious.
facetious claim
Yeah.
they may make about. So, and then it goes on. I think this is the next page. Major new media. I think that might not be the next page. So, I mean, they're really coming out in this. Meanwhile, Antifa's made up of white males too and stuff, but they're really getting the gay and lesbian community, the transgender community, and that's what they're really capitalizing on because they've programmed these people over the years in the last, not really, probably not like in your generation in elementary school and high school as much, or my generation, but the more modern generations, they've created a divide and things have changed where, people used to make comments and could joke around about different genders and stuff. Now, apparently, you could never do that. I mean, even these comedians are
Right.
shot down nowadays over it. And, so then the Antifa handbook here, it gets into, it says, believe the way we do or you will be fired. So
Wow.
I mean, yeah, if you don't think exactly like, but see, the thing is it's not hard for them to find these people that think like that because of the way they've caused this division in the schooling systems. And there's these different cliques and groups now. They've easily been able to do this. Now there's the other faction in that they could go with the Black Lives Matter, right? And they probably have all the same paperwork, but in a different manner on that level. But here it says Antifa. It says the next crucial step is to threaten the livelihoods of anyone who dares to speak out against our agenda. So now they're talking about literally threatening the
But they've
livelihoods of
been
people. By
doing
the way,
this
this,
forever, Shepard, right? Like, see,
yeah,
one thing that I've observed, I've been doing this for about 3 years. The
uh-huh.
crowdsource, the truth, and being on social media and all
Wow,
that.
and you've come so far in that 3 years.
But what I've done is I've been attacked constantly. And at first, I
Yeah.
didn't understand what was going on. I didn't even know what social engineering was. And people who've been watching the show for a long, long time may remember that when I first came on the scene, I was collaborating with another fairly well-known YouTuber who has said many times that he intends to protect Barack Obama above all else, which Barack Obama is directly linked to the Weather Underground through his relationship with Bill Ayers, his time in Chicago. He's said he's a community organizer. He's talking about Saul Alinsky type community organizing, the types of things we've seen people do in some of these behind the scene videos that you've located, some that I've taken, where we see people in the crowd. We've seen just last week when I was at a Black Lives Matter protest in Columbus Circle with Charles Ortel, we saw that there were white people in the crowd who were working with Black Lives Matters, had wireless equipment that they were, broadcasting the speech from. And look, there's nothing wrong with being white and supporting a black movement. I'm just saying it seems that a lot of the white people in Black Lives Matters are also associated with Antifa. Is that right?
I think so. I think it's basically the two-headed snake, and so that's how they're rolling it out. It's very interesting, and then you got obviously other types of provocateurs at these protests. I've seen where it looks like maybe FBI or police are dressed up like protesters, and they have earpieces in, and they're doing that whole thing too. So every group is out in these protests. It's so multifaceted. But
what do you think about this guy, Shepard? Take a look at this guy right here. He's got a period on his hat. They, because of coronavirus now, everybody is enabled to walk around like a bandit.
With masks on, almost like they made that happen, right?
It's almost like that. But this guy had a bicycle that had a fairly sophisticated wireless speaker system that was broadcasting the speech. So this is not some random guy who showed up. He's obviously coordinated with the event. So who is coordinating these protests?
That's right. It's almost like a militarized operation if you think about it. I saw another picture of Antifa. They were throwing rocks in one of the they call them protests, basically in a riot. They were throwing rocks, and they were wearing women's underwear. And it appeared to be a man. So this is.
But isn't it kind of the oldest trick in the book, Shepard, when intelligence agencies from any country want to agitate and disrupt, they find the group of disenfranchised. I mean, this guy's kind of wearing the black bloc, right? I mean, enough that if an Antifa member saw him, they would know what he's all about. What is this A period
it's a sign.
On his hat?
Right, like a signal, subliminal maybe.
Maybe.
Very interesting.
Right? So let's carry on with the manual.
Yeah, so they're talking about now threatening the livelihoods of anyone who dares to speak out against their agenda. And then they go on to say, quote, they are, after all, fascists who are clearly racist, homophobic, or misogynistic.
Misogynistic.
Oh, misogynistic. Okay.
But this is the foregone conclusion that they basically. So when I'm out in the street and I ask somebody, have you ever heard of the Black Liberation Army? Do you know who Joanne Chesimir is? The answer is, well, you have white privilege and you're a racist. And then I spoke to another person who happens to be black, a neighbor of mine, who got frustrated with the line of discussion. And this is somebody I've known for 20 years, who said to me, you're not even white, you're Jewish. And I was like, what kind of comment is that? I don't know what to do with that.
No, yeah, it's just so weird on every front now. Now they're talking about you can't run a company with someone like that in your mindset. Once we achieve this to the end, we'll almost be able to taste our victory, yet we have so much further to go to achieve our ends. Fearing for one's livelihood is clearly a big motivator. Cisgender white male fascists will begin to hide in the shadows. They may lurk online on message boards and underground media, but will be afraid to speak up using their own voice and name for fear of being labeled a bigot. That's what we were talking about earlier when that sock puppet was talking about,
Right.
this isn't
Fake name.
real, right?
Right.
Same
You
thing.
and I
So
are here.
he's doing the playbook. He's got his playbook, and it's sitting right in front of him, and he's pissed off. So
But wait, let's
now,
touch on that for a second because they're saying that cisgender white males, which are you and
mhm.
um, I identify as a man. I was born as a biological man. I believe I'm white by most standards. I don't know. My neighbor doesn't think so. But they're basically saying that every single person who they haven't met who meets those characteristics is racist, is a fascist, etc. And Laura Weekly is saying that she's also been told that she's not white because she's Jewish. But yet, when I walk out in the street, people who saw that video where I was speaking to this really attractive young lady who was driving a Lexus looked like she was very well looked after. She seemed well fed, and her skin looked great. Her hair looked great. She didn't look too oppressed to me, at least not in that moment. And she just automatically presumed that I had white privilege. I don't understand, Shepard. How is it any less racist to make a judgment about me based on me being white without knowing anything about me than it would be for a police officer or anyone to make a judgment about a black person that they also don't know anything about?
No, I know I've noticed strange comments like that lately on different levels too. So it seems like whatever their whole agenda is, they're achieving that, and they're causing all this little minutia of problems, which actually gets into and we'll come back to this in a second, but it gets into the Rockefeller lockstep plan and these
Exactly.
Rockefeller white papers, because it talked about right now, especially right now, like in this era, in the lockdown area, they want to create as many problems as society for possible so that we're tied up. See, they want us to be tied up so that they can roll everything out. And that's what they're doing. Um,
This is the document that you're talking about when you mention the lockstep program,
yeah.
scenarios for the future of technology and international development, published by the Rockefeller Foundation. When was this published? 2010.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
so this is basically describing essentially what's going on right now, isn't it?
Right. And well, it says there in there, there's an actual, I believe it's in there or it's a separate white paper, and it says lockstep, and it says, there it says there's a plan. They did a fictional scenario in 2010, and I reported on it in like 2014. So this is weird to see it all manifest, but it said this is a fictional scenario, but they basically wrote the fictional scenario out themselves, and they said, look, let's get this virus out, or if God forbid a virus does go out, then look, we can create a police state through this. We can create tracking, we can do vaccinations, we can start causing chaos, and through that chaos we'll get people to accept all sorts of agendas, and that's essentially, and then they'll come out on top, because when they come out on top, um, one way to find that is go on Intellihub in the search box and just type in Rockefeller, and you'll probably see Rockefeller pandemic plan or something like that.
Sure.
So yeah, and they want to come out on top, right? So they said this in their plan. They're talking about it, and then other white papers that they wrote this year in April talk about how they want to implement all this almost by the end of the year, if not by the beginning of next year. So the end of
It's clearly
2020.
underway. I mean, isn't it,
Yeah,
Bishop? You were the first guy to suggest that the lockdowns weren't going to end. And here we
yeah.
are. Phase two of
You've
New
got your
York is.
biblical references confused again. It's Shepherd.
I'm sorry, man. For some reason, because,
No, because of Bishop.
yeah,
Yeah, no.
exactly.
That's cool.
I mean,
I get so much information out like Bishop. It confuses you.
Gators, yeah. But Shepard, what I was trying to say is that we're in it. Basically, this Rockefeller plan is telling
Yeah,
us that it all starts with an economically weakened, unstable, shock-prone world. Well, that's what we've got. They basically
right.
put together this totally false at this point. I mean, this morning, Andrew Cuomo was all over the television doing a press conference where the man refuses to release the notion that these projections were inaccurate. He says they're accurate, and the only reason we didn't have hundreds of thousands of people dead in New York is because everybody stayed home. There's
Now,
no scientific basis for that.
Entertain this. What if this is what I want to know? Did they go tell these governors they were drilling down on Event 201? Did they go tell these governors that the real truth of what was going on? Did they go tell these governors there was, asteroids coming in, whatever all of this was all about? Or are those governors just going off of numbers and saying, look, well, these are the official numbers we're being sent? I mean, like what level are these governors and mayors at? Like, do you think they're privy? Like, that's what I really want to know the answer to that, because Cuomo, he could just get numbers from the government and say, look, that's the official numbers. I know they're real because they're official. I mean, he could be that naive, or, do they really go have a meeting and say, look, this is like what
They
we're
had a
doing.
meeting. They had
Yeah.
the U.S.-China Governors Collaboration Summit in May of 2019 in Lexington, Kentucky. And we should take a look at who attended that thing and what is happening now. I'm pretty sure that most of the governors were there. Let's see, details. Let's see. This is exclusive deal-making opportunity. Every U.S. and Chinese governor who attends will be extended the opportunity to submit in advance investment opportunities that may be viable to investors. So, you certainly want Chinese people moving to New York and paying taxes if you're the governor of New York, particularly if you're a communist and you want to be playing a role in this New World Order agenda, which China's basically all over, aren't they?
Well, yeah, remember they have a bunch of foreign trade zones in America too that are pretty much Chinese controlled too, I believe. So then they have like the contracts with drones for port security. It really, I went to the DMV years ago to get my license renewed or something, and there was a bunch of Chinese nationals in there. They were in like military fatigues or something. They were getting
Wow.
permits or something to drive. Maybe like 30 of them. So all of this could be some kind of rollout into America. I mean, are they gonna? They could do a takeover through salting, by way of salting. I mean, we don't even know what's in store for us right now. But all we know is this is a communist agenda, and yet they're trying to act like President Trump's the communist almost. Anything that's not deep state, they're so scared of, and they have a lot of control within the apparatus of the corporation of the United States, and they have a lot of control within their transnational intelligence agencies. But when you have someone like Donald Trump in the office and he still maintains the highest power in the nation, they still have to kind of tiptoe and dance around, and they're all kind of doing that. Trump's kind of doing that. They're kind of like moving around. No one can really get anything done like they want, and it's really causing this crazy situation to the point of almost where, like, I think they're going to think about making a move on Trump, whether it's invoking the 25th Amendment, or like I don't know how extreme they'll go, like JFK style or what, but they're talking about a second run on the White House now.
Yeah, I saw that on Intellihub this morning.
Yeah, and I feel like they're orchestrating this. Came from Marshall Masters, but it feels like they're going to roll it out. Remember the satanic agenda we talked about that's coming up? The Luciferian marches. They might.
It's this Sunday.
That one. Yeah, and if they really do this, and it proves to be a thing, and they're sitting there erecting satanic statues at any monument where they've torn historical monument down or anything like that, they might try, and people think they're going to attempt to do this. I've seen chatter. If they do that, I mean, what kind of, now we're talking a holy war that they're starting. It's a whole new division of this psyop that's now it's going to be a tri-headed snake. It's going to be a trident.
Whoops. Well, there was episode pretty recently. There we go. Yeah, they had tried to do this in Arkansas, and obviously everybody
Yeah.
knows that that's Bill Clinton's old stomping
Mhm.
ground. But
I
a
think that was
satanic,
2018 or something, right? Or 2019? Yeah.
yeah, this is like a giant statue of Baphomet.
Baphomet.
Yeah, and he has tattooed on his arm some Latin that means "from order comes chaos, from chaos comes order," and
That
that's
might have been a
basically,
beta test right there for the an orchestrated rollout that we're going to see on Sunday. We don't even know yet. What if they do that in every city?
yeah. This is the Satanic Temple of Detroit unveiling this Baphomet statue, and I mean, these are people who openly support human sacrifices and child molestation and all kinds of, sex magic, as they call it, which involves
Right.
really reprehensible and illegal things that I guess they try to get away with under the guise of it being religious freedom. But this is really troubling stuff.
Yeah.
I just want people to
Well, they
see
want
this.
to go. So these Antifa, so now we talked about the Luciferian agenda, which probably dovetails into all this. It all seems so orchestrated. This is like a CIA, Soros, Obama faction rollout. Phase two, the socialization of capital. This is out of the Antifa manual, Intellihub.com. Never reveal our in game, they say. But the obvious next step, once we control the media, is the socialization of capital. This will obviously require major political power. With hopefully 70% people of color in this nation, we may begin to have a chance at the end. See, so they've broken the borders. They've got basically made white people the minority, and then they want to rally against white people, and that's how they plan to regain their control, I guess, apparently.
Well, but
So
wait a second. Socializing capital to me sounds like they want to take everybody's money who has it and give it evenly to
they
everyone.
do, I think they want to do like a redistribution of wealth, but that we don't know their definition and who they want to. I mean, does that mean take it from Donald Trump, or does that mean take it from George Soros?
Everybody. No, I think it
You
means
know,
take it from everybody who has money and distribute it evenly, because socialism, that's how it works.
right.
Capitalism, when it's, look, here's the thing. We've got crony capitalism right now, which is blown out of control. I mean, capitalism has regulations on it as well. You want people to not use unfair business practices to gain a monopoly and then control a market. It's still a mystery to me why they've allowed companies like Amazon.com to do that.
That's right.
Microsoft for a long time enjoyed this.
Their people can have monopolies, but like a separate company that built from the ground up, and then they come up with a good idea, they're going to call it a monopoly. They're going to kick them out.
Right. And, towards what you're reading from that last entry there, I think it was just this morning, the Supreme Court ruled against Donald Trump's bid to end DACA. And so this is obviously going to allow children of immigrants who come here specifically to take advantage of having their children become citizens. This is a loophole that allows them to just be here. So the thing that's strange to me is that, when my grandparents came to the United States, people came here not because they were intent on destroying and changing the country. They came here because they wanted to be a part of something great. My personal advice for people who hate the United States is to leave, because if you want to destroy it, that's an act of war. And as far as I know, the cops and the army and everything, they have a lot of guns. I fully support the cops shooting people who want to pull people out of their cars and beat them up and take what they have and distribute it in a way that they feel is equitable. It's really strange, Shepard, sorry. It's really strange, Shepard, because I got a mental block on that. We see an example of how this would play out in Seattle, in this Chaz, whatever it is. And there's this warlord named Raz who's running the Chaz, who drives a Tesla. He's got guns that he's giving out to people. I mean, this is expensive stuff. Where does an unknown rapper...
What's your opinion, Jason? Do you think that's like an FBI rollout? I mean, like, what do they really just let? Like, I mean, I guess you can go walk around because isn't Seattle like open carry or whatever? But I mean, do you think like these warlords and stuff are like an FBI element walking through there trying to, I mean, like, or do you
I
think it's
don't think
just
he's a
really
warlord.
some?
I think here's what's interesting. If you put on Fox News, this is an absolute invasion that needs to be tamped down by the army immediately. If you put on CNN, this is a peaceful street fair and like that. If you start looking at people's individual live streaming feeds, you get a different flavor, which during the day, it does seem that there are large areas of it that do look like a street festival. However, there's an abandoned police station there. I've seen video of armed guards standing there. I've seen video of this guy Raz handing out guns.
Right.
I personally do not believe that a city without police that is being run by an improvised rule of law put together by a largely ignorant crowd that has no idea what they're doing or what the plan is. I think it's chaos over there.
Yeah,
And
no,
I think,
there is. I've seen video. People are getting like some guy was like, "Give me my phone back and my car keys," and like he was sitting, and it looks like anything can happen at any moment. I don't know like what some of those movies are in Hollywood or something that it reminds me of, but it's definitely like a really weird scenario. But then again, is this an area that, say, for instance, the FBI or how you can probably search this FBI hatches, terror plots, all this stuff. So
yeah.
or the CIA or CIA Soros factor, whatever. They're almost like allowing this to happen. I mean, why wouldn't someone just move in and be like, nope, this isn't happening?
Well, the mayor told the cops to stand down.
Yeah, well, exactly. So, and then now that we're on that level, is what you're seeing basically is a lot of Democratic mayors and governors with the stand down orders and all this trickling down because it looks like it goes right back up to some kind of New World Order apparatus that's puppeting them, and they're carrying out that plan. That's those people that are sprinkled into the government that I was talking about, the deep state. They've salted their way in. Those are some of the players, and you see how that can affect things because they're creating that.
Yeah.
They're letting it happen.
Well, they're not only letting it happen, they want it to happen.
Right.
And I mean, we see that in many cities. The fact that a lot of people say this is peaceful, but yet at the same time, we see blockades. I mean, if you went out in the street in any city with a tripod to just create a documentary, they'd come over and start hassling you that you don't have a permit. You certainly can't start setting up barricades and painting graffiti all over the streets. What about the inhabitants of Seattle who don't want graffiti all over the place? They pay taxes as well, and this stuff is going to have to be cleaned up at an expense to them. So this is somebody's idea of peaceful and free and somebody else's idea of vandalism and thugism by, if you want to drive your car through there, you're going to be stopped by somebody with a gun. So it's not so much that they...
Yeah. No, it might not even be someone's idea of being peaceful and free. It literally just might be their agenda, and they know it's going to cause, all sorts of experimental chaos within. You got anywhere, like you said, there's a zone that looks kind of artsy, and then there's complete chaos, and so like what a interesting full scale real-time experiment that they're conducting as well, and the data that they collect from such a zone.
Yeah, I mean,
surely the FBI's got everyone's name that's in there, and I mean,
I would hope so. I have no idea what the FBI does other than fail to prosecute people who need to be prosecuted. But, I've heard a lot of people defending this as a peaceful, street fair type of environment. But, there's a lot of graffiti they said that they're only painting graffiti on the wood, on the walls. That's untrue. We can see that right here.
Well, and they do got that street fair type environment, and that's what the media, so, you can run this out both ways. Media could show up to the street fair, like you're showing now, and they can say, look, nothing's going on. Then you got the guys that can show up right at the police station when the police tried to retake the police station with a Trojan horse and couldn't even retake it.
What?
So there's, Yeah, they couldn't. It's on Intellihub, man. They tried to retake the police station and couldn't even retake it. They failed.
Well, look at this. Here's a gate, and it seems like, there's someone controlling your access to this. So what gives
Right.
this group of people
Yeah, and
self-appointed?
you're telling me like, so not one cop's gonna go over there. What about like some rookie cop or something that just feels like he should save the world or something? Like, not one cop's gonna go over to the gate and like, especially in that like violent zone, and like, I mean, it's just really weird. It's just they're operating with impunity, but obviously that's what they want, and it talks about this. We were talking about the redistribution of wealth, basically. Then they have phase three of this thing, the Antifa. It says New World Order, and it says, "Imagine a world free of hatred and bigotry." See, they make it sound so good. Imagine a world where you never have to
But
be
they're
called
lying
the
right away,
N-word.
Bishop, Shepard.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry, Shepard. They're lying because
right.
they formed this council, which started with one black woman, one black man, and one Asian woman, or something like that. And then they said, "Oh, we're adding a white woman, and we're adding a trans person, and we're adding a trans person of color." And they kept adding more people, but not even a single white man.
Yeah,
So isn't
no, no, no.
that
It's
bigotry?
everything they do is the opposite. Yeah, and then it says, "Imagine a world where you never have to be called the N word again. Imagine a world where you can be as gay as you want." Anderson Cooper would like that, and not be called a ragtag dick sucking faggot, where antif ideas reign supreme and all hateful microaggressive speech is eradicated. Now, see, they're rallying all the transgenders right now. They're rallying anyone who's anti-white. They're rallying anyone who thinks they're basically a frog or a
Well,
gay unicorn.
what they
Anyone
want to
that
do
attends
is
drag queen story hour, they're
just
rallying these people.
align anybody who feels disenfranchised, so they can create
Yeah,
this giant conglomeration of those who feel they've been wronged and work them into a frenzy. This is a typical insurgency tactic, right? So if this is China doing this, they would identify who are the groups. Racism is a problem, sexism is a problem. Jennifer Hernandez says Anderson is gay, question mark. I mean, if you don't know that, you've got a lot of research to do. But
now this is where it's crazy. And this is insane. One way to accomplish this will be to tag or microchip every human being on the planet. They will do so voluntarily, use the guise of entertainment and other benefits to lure people to this end. This chip embedded in your hand or neck will allow Antifa approved regulators to monitor the citizenry of the world. Information accessible by waving a wand a few feet away from the chip would be DNA content, including percentage of color, genetic disadvantages. See, they want
wow,
a world where you seen Gattaca, where the guy couldn't be an
right.
astronaut. Yeah, okay, they want that. They want a world in with you. If you're not 17% or more black, you can't even say Nigga. Like, you can't say it in a rap song. You can't sing along with a rap song. You can't, you have to be like 17 and a half, like 18% black, and then like you could say that. That's literally in their manual, in their
Wow.
manifesto.
How would
Yeah.
they? I mean,
No, no, no. They
17%.
want to. They want to keep this data. They want to keep it on a chip, and it will tell you. And you'll scan it, and they'll say you're 18% black. See, this is what they say in lockstep in the white papers. They want the Bill Gates microdot tracer. They want the COVID ID, COVID vaccination ID, 2019, 2020. They want it because that's going to contain all that information.
Yeah. Well, we've heard a lot about this quantum dot tattoo technology, RFID chip
I think all this
technology.
dovetails. I really do. I think that it all dovetails. Now they're telling all these people that they've rallied the Antifa. They say, "Look, you got to get chipped," and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's so loving because they'll know if we're 18%, then I could say that word, or they'll feel special in some way. This is amazing."
It is. Well, let's carry on with the thing.
So they're talking about chipping every human, and it says, thus, with the wave of a wand, one would be able to tell whether that vaguely being beigeish looking person is allowed to use the term NIGGA. For example, in Iraq lexicon, it's popular to say where my NIGGA is at, etc. While clearly misogynistic, a person of color has the right to use the term
Whoa.
NIGGA.
Now, wait a
So,
minute.
like,
So, but they're saying the phrase "I got hoes in different area codes" is clearly misogynist. What does that have to do with anything
right?
else they're
No, yeah,
saying
that's
here?
what I caught that too. Yeah, I know. Isn't that weird how they like slip that in there? It's almost like you're not even allowed to refer to anything of the black culture unless you are now going to have to be 17% or more
You know what
black,
I find
or you
stupid about this, Shepard? They talk about cultural appropriation and all this and that, but I mean that is wanting segregation to say that only black people can be involved in hip hop. I mean, this is like saying only old
exactly.
French dudes and guys from Edison, New Jersey are allowed to make movies because they
Everything they
invented it.
say they want, they're doing opposite. It's so weird.
I mean, isn't it
Whatever
isn't it
happened
the
to this
ultimate
though? What about
confirmation?
racial pride? What about like, okay, some guys like I'm part Greek or something. Okay, well, should I be proud to be Greek or can I not? You're part Jewish or whatever. Okay, can you be proud to be Jewish? Can um, you know, can an American be proud? Can
Well, but let me give you an
uh
example of something here. In Japan, jazz music is extremely popular. And I've thought about
uh-huh.
this a lot because Japanese society and Japanese culture, it's very focused on order and organization and everything. Like if you go on the subway in Tokyo, everybody is sitting there quietly reading a book or on their phone. Nobody talks, nobody's out of line at all. And
Mm-hmm.
jazz being improvisational is sort of the opposite of that. So the cultural and creative clash of this disorganization in an extremely orderly fashion is interesting. And there are some very good Japanese jazz musicians. Now, I don't think the Japanese invented jazz music. I do believe it came out of black culture. So should Japanese people be disallowed from playing it? Isn't it the ultimate compliment
Yeah,
to a
no, that's what
culture
they want
to
in there. Yeah, no, they want that because it says 80% of Caucasian descent attempts to use the N word with the hard R at the end. They will clearly be in violation of hate crime speech or blah, 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 Yeah, no, this is exactly they're creating this whole thing. This is
hate
insanity.
crime speech?
Could you imagine where you can't if you don't get tagged and tracked, like, okay, uh I guess, new students at a school in a college, those that aren't tagged and tracked, they don't know what percentage these people are. They can't talk a certain way anymore. They might have to be segregated to a, you're not microchipped. This is what that lockstep white paper, this is what all that was saying. It's like you're not going to be able to participate in society unless you have this identifier chip. And this identifier chip will not only have all your medical data, to basically have all your social data. Now we know they want to put DNA and genetic data. This is basically like Hitler's agenda with modern technology.
How about we just let everybody say whatever they want as long as it's
Exactly. And
not
if people don't like it, then they
violent,
can turn
illegal
the scroll
stuff?
there. Yeah, as long as you're not like hurting someone, like I guess standing in front
Lies.
of the face 24 hours a day, like saying something or what. Yeah, I know. I kind of feel the same way. Like whatever happened to like the wild, wild west.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit more into allowing people to say what they want as long as it's not, as I said, lies or threats of
Right.
violence. And if you don't like what they say, just don't associate with that
Yeah.
person. Um, we've got a couple
They
more
want to, no,
pages.
because their ultimate goal, they want people to be scared to say anything. So,
Right.
eventually, like the next generation, they've degenerated people. But like the next generation of people, they're going to be just working in a cubicle, and
No, they're not. They're going
they'll
to be
want to
working from
talk to the guy
home.
next to them, but they can't say like they'll be like working,
No,
and they'll be like
no,
they
no.
they won't
They're
be
going
like,
to
hey
be
Bob,
totally
hey,
isolated.
hey Bob, did you see that protest the other day? What did you think of that? What do you think of Donald Trump?
No,
They
Shepard,
can't even
people will
say
be
that.
totally isolated. They're talking now. Somebody sent me a video yesterday of one of the biggest real estate agents or owners in New York City talking about how many more people are working from home and all this kind of thing. And a lot of
Hmm.
companies aren't going to go back. I mean, in part,
Well, that's another thing. Okay, so what I see this as, not only are they saving money and there's a lot of ways they can do things, and now like all Twitter employees work from home and all this stuff, and now they don't even need their operation. And great, they could have did
right.
that the whole time, and they probably could have saved some pollution and some of that greenhouse emissions, and great. But you know, th this is it's training because they're bringing out the robots. Look, they're defunding the police departments because they want to roll out RoboCop. Remember Ed 209, and they're in that meeting, and then they got like RoboCop, but they had the
Oop. Wait, Shepard, we just lost you there for a second. Oh, man, I hate it when this happens. Hang on. Let's see if we can get Shepard back.
they got these the Big Dog and the Atlas, the Boston Dynamics. They just need to outfit those with gun turrets and stuff. Next thing you know, they're going to be roaming around. They're going to have hamburger shops. All this is going to be computerized. They're phasing out humans to top it off. It just plays in with the whole Deagle report. Any way you look at this, it's all just like closing in, and they're really going for.
Yeah. Hey, I'm sorry, Shepard. We lost your audio for a second there. I just need to restart the computer while we bring you back on. This is really.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes, but what's happening is we got. Oh, lots of problems happening. Hang on one second.
No worries, it's how they do it. I have the Intellihub guy on, proud so it's the truth.
Right. So, okay. Now, the other thing that I've put on the cover image for today, while we get your main feedback up here, we got a picture of Keith Ellison holding the Antifa handbook. So, how does what you've found differ from this published Antifa handbook?
I found is more of like how they rally the troops for the first time. This is how what I found is like, and it probably comes in a better presentation. This was like a photocopy. This was an actual photocopy piece that my former employer got and he gave to me. He got it from Antifa, basically from some younger crowd. But how it differs is this one document that's on Intellihub.com. It's more of like a white paper. It's more of like their rallying document. It's like, look, you've been tapped. You've been tapped. Don't give this to anyone. We think this much of you right now. We know you're not going to tell anyone. This is kind of how you get indoctrinated. This is the first level of Antifa on a secret level.
Right. So, okay, let me try and bring you back in here real quick. I think we should be. Okay. I think we got you back.
Yeah, so they tap them on a secret level, basically. But it even talks about in this document, Jason, phase 4, one world government, right? I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. It just goes right down the whole New World Order list. It says our movement will eventually spread to other nations, indeed, and we're already seeing that.
Yeah.
The same Antifa agenda here is happening in, all these other places. They're rolling it out. It has already begun. It says peoples will prove excessively resistant to our brand of Antifa, such as those who were previously burned by communism or failed socialist states. So what they're essentially saying is like, if people have been through this, they're not even going to accept this agenda. That's kind of funny. And then make no mistake, we will prevail where others have failed. Their leaders' lust for power and wealth and eventually led them to create layers of corrupt state officials. Antifa have power of the people on our side, or will eventually and will not succumb to the fate. So, they're, again, this is rallying their troops. It is only natural that the ideologies we espouse will spread throughout the globe. Starving Africans will finally be lifted out of the poverty when we redistribute the wealth of the Western 1% to them and to our brothers and sisters here at home. So they're kind of making promises to pay. They're making promises to pay right there. Container ship after container ship will be converted to a massive passenger cruise liners that will
What?
ferry poverty-stricken brown people from around the world. I don't know about you, but if I was a poverty-stricken brown person, I wouldn't want to get on no container ship that they told me was a cruise liner.
Well, how are
I
they
mean,
going to
this
do
sounds like
this? I
you can't
mean,
even make this stuff up.
they can't even grow a plant in the middle of a city in Seattle. How are they going to convert a ship to a cruise ship and go around the
Yep.
world doing all this stuff? This
I
is
don't even
idiotic.
think any Antifa's even worked on a construction site in their life. I mean,
It's quite strange, I have to say, Shepard. What do you think we should do with regard to Seattle? I mean, it's a problem. If Trump sends the military in there, obviously that
I
seems to be what
know
they
that's a
want.
problem with with posse comitatus and all that. I just think, well, one thing, it's like, where's the militias at? Like, that's in the Constitution, right? Militias train. If you're allowed to open carry, why not just kind of go pressure those people out with, kind of not really forcefully, but like just show up in numbers or something? Or like, where are these groups? Like, where also, like, what? The police can't come from every department in Seattle and just show up maybe like 1,000 deep. I mean,
Well, I mean,
like,
they have their orders, right? I mean, and the other thing is, police, I think, around the country are looking at what's happening in Atlanta. The district attorney in Atlanta yesterday gave a press conference in which he basically lied. He completely lied. He said that Rayshard Brooks presented no threat to the police officers, but that's not true. He punched them. He struggled with them. He stole a taser from one of them and fired it at them. That's a threat. Just a week or two prior, the same district attorney characterized the use of a taser as deadly force with regard to Atlanta police officers using it on another black suspect. And so one week it's deadly force, the next week it's
right,
not. This is a guy
right.
who's changing the facts to suit his agenda. People also may not know that district attorney himself is under investigation by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and he's also up for re-election in a city that's 32% black. So right now, he's seen as a hero of the masses who maybe don't educate themselves to the facts of the matter. They just hear what this guy has to say on the news, and they never look at the videotapes. They never look at the actual evidence.
Right. Well, I agree with all that. He's going to say what he wants when it's convenient, I guess. I guess we'll have to see where it all goes. The whole thing is basically more white people every year, I think in general, are killed by police than blacks. And, if you just look at it like that, whites
Well,
should
I don't
be.
like to look at it like that because
Yeah, no, no, no. I
ideally
mean,
we don't want
I don't either,
anybody
but
to
I'm
get
saying, like,
killed by the
it
police.
just it brings some of that into perspective. And there's only several hundred people in each race, as it breaks down through the different race groups, like on the chart, um, that are killed by police. And I mean, I guess that's a lot of people every year. But I
But
don't
wait a
think it
minute. Before
justifies
we
burning down
compare
the
how
nation.
many are killed by the police, the more important factor for me is whatever color you are, you cannot fight with the police, steal weapons from the police, and use them against the police without expecting to be
Exactly.
killed. That's crazy. You just
And
cannot
of
do
course
that.
there is, and we can't forget, Jason, of course there's obviously police that probably go around and just kill people or whatever, and that happens, but it's rare. And yeah, you're right. If you I mean, I would be scared to even, like, imagine you get pulled over by a cop and he says, pull out your license, and you're like, here, and you like whip it out
Right.
real quick. I mean, you're almost asking to be shot. I mean, like, you don't know what this guy's thinking, right? I wouldn't do anything like that.
We need public service announcements to educate. Remember when I was a little kid, maybe this was just in New York, they had a thing with these puppets saying, they were like, hey, what are we doing out of the pill jar? And it was telling little kids not to eat pills because they look like candy. And I guess there was a problem with kids taking pills and dying. Why don't they have public service announcements? Why don't they make a cartoon? Why don't they have a class in public school? Here's how you act around the police. Educate the public, black and white. If a police officer is doing something that you think is not appropriate, don't challenge him. Just
exactly. That's the thing. I think people, especially too, like if a cop's having a bad day and he might be one of those cops that's going to do something. I mean, why are you even going to challenge him? Just get away. I mean, like, really.
Now, one of the points that the Atlanta district attorney brought up is that after a 40-minute conversation where two police officers have taken this guy out of his car, they're asking him how much he's had to drink, they're giving him a field sobriety test, they show him the breathalyzer, shows that he's 1.08 when the legal limit is 0.08. And they're asking him, all kinds of questions, interviewing him, and they say, you've had too much to drink. Put your hands behind your back. And he, at a normal speed, walks around to the back of the guy and grabs his hands to handcuff him. And immediately Brooks begins to struggle and fight. Now, the district attorney is making a big point out of the officers didn't follow appropriate procedure because they didn't say, you are under arrest. And they should have read him his Miranda rights.
Right.
Now, this is a valid and sticky point. Because the police should be doing that.
Are they really going to do that in an escalating situation, right? You're not going to.
That's it, exactly. He could have been about to say it.
They say the taser was fired twice and the cop should have known, but also the taser was taken from one cop, I believe, right? And so that guy turned, and a taser might look like a gun, right? I mean, like.
I just think that second guessing a situation like that, where from moment to moment you don't know what's going to happen,
it's too fluid.
It's too fluid. And I've seen another video this morning that someone posted of a similar situation where a suspect struggles with the police at the moment that they try to handcuff him, tries to get a taser, tries to get a gun, fights with these guys, gets a moment where he can go into his car and get a gun, and he shot at the cops and he shot both of them.
One thing
and drove away with a gun to go shoot whoever he wants or crash into people. So in my view, when you train a weapon on a police officer, preserving your life becomes the secondary consideration. Defusing the situation and protecting the public is the first.
Yeah, if you throw a brick at a police officer's car, if you even if you inch your vehicle toward a police officer's vehicle and he says he's in fear of his life, he's gonna shoot you, basically. I mean, like, there's lots of things that can justify that. I mean, from a police standpoint, for them to be able to do that. And you got to think about it too. If you were a policeman and you were in that situation, you're going to want to go home at the end of the night, basically. You're not really going to take a chance. But then, you do see some of these things when they're like firing at people like in the back or something. What do you think about this? What do you think about some of these police using common sense in some of these cases? And for instance, they know a guy doesn't have a weapon, but it's kind of a weird, sticky situation, and they don't want to get overtaken. Why not just shoot the guy in the foot? Or
I just think that kind of accuracy, I mean, again, we're second guessing. I've seen enough of these videos, and I think someone who's a police officer has probably seen more and is aware of more scenarios than I am, that when you are not complying with police orders, when you demonstrate that you're willing to fight with the police, you're willing to take weapons from the police, you're willing to use weapons against the police, you are making a clear statement that you are willing to do anything. As you said, I've been pulled over by the police, and the number one thing is you got to let that cop know that you're not a danger, that even if he says something that you don't agree with, you got to go to court and argue about that. If you argue with the cops, you're just inviting trouble. Shepard, we're almost out of time for today. Is there actually is something else in this manual I think we should talk about. They're talking here about crashing the borders. Most liberals are not Antifa yet, but soon they will be. Refugee crises such as those created by the situation in Syria are the ideal way to get more people of color into America. So this is, by the way, a crisis created by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, no. They want, they want more. Exactly, they want more people in America that are of color, of any color, that's not white, because then they can rally them with this document right here. So that, that's also what we saw, like in Mexico, I believe, isn't it like the La Raza plan or something like that, where they want to get their people across the border, then they want to have babies, and they want to, so all of this keeps on progressing until white people become a minority, which I think they already have in America technically. So they've achieved this. Barack Obama, like you said, let them in. They started flooding them through. They didn't like it when Trump was going to close them borders, and this is the byproduct of it. This is what they got.
Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly feel the need for America to be majority white. I just want it to be a majority of peaceful, honest people who want to coexist and
who came in the right way legally too. Think about that, right? I mean, that'd be cool if they came in legally, like, right? Who cares what color they are? But just shipping them in to ship them in to get their vote.
It's very troubling what's happening right now, Shepard. I think that people are really concerned. This movement to defund the police is absolutely outrageous in my view. And the sad thing is it's becoming irrelevant, because when we see things happen like this district attorney in Atlanta charging a police officer with murder, 11 charges against this police officer, including assault on the passengers of a car who a bullet hit in the course of trying to neutralize Rayshard Brooks. They're charging the officer with assault, with felony destruction of property, outrageous charges that
just to pacify a group, right?
Well, it's not just to pacify a group. I believe it's intended to undermine the police. If you were a police officer and you have now the new realization that even if someone punches you, takes weapons from you.
They all want to quit now, right?
Right. Well, why wouldn't they? They're at danger.
That's what it is. That's what it is. They're getting them. They want them all to quit to top it off. They got to roll out RoboCop. I'm telling you, it's going to get weird.
I don't know if they have RoboCop ready to roll out, but what they want is a nation that is unprotected by the police.
Right.
So that we'll all be, so that what they basically want is for honest people to be scared in their homes and the streets and the cities to be controlled by criminals. But what's going to happen there is I do not believe that they're going to be able to quickly form some organized society that's capable of doing advanced technological things like converting container ships into cruise vessels, or even a non-luxurious vessel that could sustain thousands of people on an ocean-going trip. I think these are a bunch of morons who are going to fight with each other in downtown Seattle. They are absolutely bigots. They are absolutely ignorant. And I think we're heading towards a very unpleasant scenario. Actually, Laura says they have RoboCop already. I've seen Atlas. I've seen the dog and all that. And you're right. You know what? To some extent, they do have that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They do.
And no, this is getting weird. I mean, it's like something out of pretty much any science fiction movie, it's weird. These are strange times, Jason.
Absolutely. It's true, Shepard. Well, listen, we're going to have you back on real soon, but until the next show, I would encourage people to check out Intellihub.com. You can get your news from there daily, and it is important that we keep independent media and news strong. So people who enjoy Intellihub and enjoy seeing Shepard on Crowdsource the Truth can go to Intellihub.com/donate, and you can support Shepard's work over there at Intellihub.com. Really want to thank you for bringing us this manual and these insights. Also want to remind people that you can support this program by going to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. It's so important that viewers of Crowdsource the Truth sponsor the show, sponsor the guests and the co-hosts. I can't bring you this kind of information without your support and sponsorship. The mainstream news is not talking about this stuff, Shepard, and they really want to take alternative views out
That's
of the
the thing.
conversation.
There's only a handful of agencies doing it. Yourself and Intellihub. I mean, there's, I mean, it's like once they're taking away people, there ain't going to be anything left. Yeah, support your alternative news.
Absolutely. And thanks for coming on the show, Shepard. We'll have you back real soon. Thanks for
Anytime.
watching, everybody. See you later.